The following is a special video presentation from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. You are watching RJ Debates 2020. Here is your host, Steve Sebelius.
Welcome to RJ Debates 2020. I'm Steve Sebelius. In this debate series, we're talking with candidates for judicial office all the way up and down the ballot. Tonight, we are joined by candidates for family court in Department U. That is a new department. There's no incumbent. Our candidates are Bill Gonzalez. He is a former family court judge who's on the bench for 6 years and is looking to return. He's currently in private practice. We also have Dawn Throne. She's an attorney in private practice and certified by the State Bar of Nevada as a family law specialist. We're going to begin with opening statements from the candidates. We go in alphabetical order at the beginning. And so, Judge Gonzalez, your opening statement for 1 minute.
Steve, I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and the audience today regarding my experience in family court. As you stated, I served for over 6 years in family court. I presided over 10,000 cases. I presided also over 425 trials and evidentiary hearings. Prior to taking the bench, I served in the juvenile justice system for 5 years, where I represented 2,000 children. Many of those children were in the foster care system. As a result of my work there, I've been endorsed by the juvenile probation officers because of what I did in helping children. I'm currently a court-appointed attorney for abuse and neglect cases in the dependency system. I've represented hundreds of children there. 2 or 3 of the brand new seats will be judges that will be assigned to abuse and neglect. On day 1, I will be able to go into the courtroom and start assisting families and assist with the backlog with children in the foster care system. I have been endorsed by 9 family law specialists here in our community. I've been endorsed by a child welfare specialist, Janice Wolf.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. That's time for that opening statement. Ms. Throne, your opening statement, please, for 1 minute.
Thank you, Steve. And I thank the RJ for this wonderful opportunity to get to talk to the voters of Clark County. My name is Dawn Throne. I am a family law specialist, one of 48 family law specialists in the state of Nevada, and the only family law specialist in this state. What that means is I have a very broad range of experience in family law. I've handled every kind of family law cases, from the most complex financial issues, most complex and years-long custody cases, as well as guardianship, probate, termination of parental rights and adoptions. And I also have a broad range of civil experience. I've done contract disputes, personal injury, some bankruptcy work. I've even done criminal misdemeanors on both sides. I did 12 bench trials prosecuting misdemeanor crimes. So I have a very broad range of knowledge about courts and how to do this job. I also know what the public is looking for in a good family court judge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Our first question is going to go to you. As you heard in his opening statement, your opponent has actually held this job for 6 years and handled hundreds of cases in trial. Isn't that a insurmountable advantage in this race?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Sometimes it's hard. I know Bill, I like him as a person, but he had a very poor performance during those almost 6 years. He had almost a 40% overturning rate from the Supreme Court. That's a D- performance. The Review-Journal judging the judges, the attorneys who appeared in front of him rated him very poorly. And he ran an inefficient calendar. Instead of doing trials and making decisions, he would set status check after status check after status check, which then runs up the attorney's fees and costs. And I mean, he's a nice person, but if you can't make a decision or you don't know the law, and the background that he had was very narrow in terms of representing children in juvenile delinquency cases, working for the government. It's not the same as being in private practice and having a wide range of experience.
Thank you very much. Judge Gonzalez, as your opponent just pointed out, your ratings in 2009, 60%, in 2013, 68%. When you ran in 2014, you lost that race by about 10 points. Does she have a point? Have the voters not spoken on your tenure?
Well, if you look at the last rating I had, it was 68%. That was almost 7 out of 10 attorneys that appeared in front of me felt that I was doing a good job and that I should be retained as a judge. As you know, we recently had a primary and the voters put me out on top. They put me at 2,000 votes in front of Dawn. It's interesting that she says that I could not administer a calendar, yet when I took the bench, I had 800 open cases. In January 2014, I took the bench in 2009, that was down to 410 open cases. I was one of the judges that had the least amount of open cases. You don't get there by not making decisions and putting things off. And my calendar, you could come into my courtroom on 30 days, 60 days, and I could get you in for a necessary evidentiary hearing or trial. So if you look at the actual facts of what happened when I was on the bench, I did a really good job and I knew how to administer a calendar. And the most important thing for me was to have an atmosphere where people could resolve their cases quickly so you didn't ratchet up the legal cost on a case. And I did that.
All right,
very
thank
well.
you, Your Honor. That's time on that question. This next question, though, does go to you first. You were first appointed to the bench in 2009 by the then Governor Jim Gibbons. And in that process, you went through a rather extensive professional vetting. The application for appointment to these courts is very extensive and asks quite a few questions. Do you think it would be better if judges were appointed rather than elected to office, especially in specialty areas such as the family court?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Steve, the voters have never given that a wink. You have to have a constitutional amendment. But the process that I went through is overseen by Justice Hardesty. He was the Chief Judge of the Nevada Supreme Court. You had attorneys, you had persons from the community at large, and they vetted your experience in the courtroom. They vetted your experience in the committee. I ended up being one of the top 3 candidates out of there. I then went in front of our governor, who was an attorney, and he had his chief of staff, who was an attorney, and his legal counsel, and they all vetted me. If you look at where I'm at today, as I was saying before, I have 9 family law specialists. They both know Dawn and myself. One of them, Sean Goldstein, actually worked with Dawn, and they are all endorsing me and my candidate because they know the difference of what I provide in the courtroom and what Dawn would provide if she was there. So I think, and again, going back to your question, it would be a better position to have somebody vetted, put on the bench, and then have a retention election in case they're not doing the job, then the voters could take that person off the bench.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that answer. Ms. Throne, same question to you. Would it be better? Do you think it would be better to have judges who are professionally vetted and appointed to office with retention elections rather than simply running the way you would run for assembly or city council?
I think, yes, it would. I went to law school in Arizona, and that's what they do there is have appointments and retention elections. It does take out some of the money and influence, and you look at who are the big donors for judges, who are people supporting who they think they can manipulate and influence with money. That would take that money out of it. It would take out a lot of issues. And I mean, but it doesn't matter how much money you spend. In 2014, he outspent his opponent by $40,000, and she still beat him. And she spent over a year cleaning up the mess of cases he left her with.
All right, thank you for that answer. We are going to take our first break, but we will be right back after this with more questions and answers for Family Court Department U. Stay with us.
All your listeners and followers, the best name of any podcast in the world is podcast.
Nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever faked
Not that we
their
know
death.
of.
No.
When you work with Prince, you got to get used to the fact that he changes musicians like underwear. You know, like
Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, he's a quarterback in the Boston area.
I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Welcome back to RJ Debates 2020. We're talking with candidates for Family Court Department U. This next question goes to Ms. Throne first. Um, the candidates that I have interviewed, whether they be judges or attorneys, all agree on one thing seemingly, and that is that there is a justice gap in the courts, especially in a court like family court where so many people represent themselves pro se. Do you think it is time that there be given a right to have an attorney in family court the way there's a right to have an attorney in a criminal case?
Well, talking about rights versus ability to do that, and not everybody gets an attorney appointed in criminal cases even. First of all, they have the lack of means to do that, and it has to be a serious enough case. But it doesn't matter what we think if we can't do the money. We're going to have a very big shortage starting next January of courtrooms, staff. There's going to be a shortage of money, and every government entity is going to have to find creative ways to provide the services to the citizens of this county and this state without those resources. So there isn't enough attorneys going around. But in the 23 years that I've been doing this, family court has made great strides in helping people who either want to or don't have a choice but to represent themselves. They need to come in and get a divorce, get a custody order. We have the self-help center, we have legal aid, ask a lawyer. They have videos helping people with how to do your own trial.
Okay, thank you very much. Judge Gonzalez, what do you think? Should there be a right to counsel in family court if you are an indigent person who's trying to represent yourself?
Yeah, I wish that were the case, but if you look at the economics of it, there are so many cases that we have currently where there are not enough attorneys, or individuals don't have the money that they can afford to pay for an attorney. I have always had been a good relationship with legal aid services and providing pro bono services in our community. I take a lot of private cases where I don't charge people because I believe that they need to have their voice heard in the courtroom. This is why it's particularly important for judges to take the time on each case when they come in on an early case management conference to make sure that they know what they need to do to get evidence admitted before the court, to have witnesses subpoenaed, to put on a case, and then you refer them out. There's many organizations, legal aid services, and other people through UNLV that provide them the training that they need. There is a program through the Nevada Supreme Court called the One Program, where they encourage every single attorney to take a pro bono case at least once a year. I think we have a moral obligation as an attorney to do that and to do much more than we're doing today.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate that. This next question will go first to you, and that is the other thing that judges and judicial candidates all agree on is that they're going to treat people in their courtrooms with dignity and respect and fairness. Tell me how you deal, or in your case, how you dealt with difficult people when you're on the bench. What are your strategies for that?
Well, my strategy as a judge, you have to set the tone in the courtroom. And that applies to attorneys, it applies to litigants, it applies to people in the gallery who are observing. And if somebody is being disrespectful, you need to address that immediately. There's been times where I've taken attorneys in the back where we've had a discussion when they try to get things heated up. At the end of the day, you want an atmosphere in the courtroom where people could feel comfortable, where they can have their voice heard and they can resolve their issues. I believe this is an area where Don and I vastly are very different in this regard. The both of us have been opposite each other. After I was off the bench, I had a case where we were in mediation and my client left the room crying because of what was going on in that mediation. I don't think there's any place for that. And I don't think there's any place for that on the bench.
Ms. Throne, you've been an attorney for quite a number of years. How do you deal with difficult people, whether they be clients or fellow attorneys, or this situation that Judge Gonzalez just mentioned?
Well, you first of all have to treat them as people. Put yourself in their shoes and understand. And I have been a party in family court. I've been a guardian for my grandmother. I've gotten a divorce. So I understand the fear that they're coming with, and they don't understand. Haven't been to law school. You've got to deal with these people first by saying, okay, what is the issue that is making them be difficult? What aren't they understanding? Explain to them, especially when you have to make a decision, explain to them why you make that decision and what the law says and what your limits are, so that when they leave that courtroom, they felt like they've been heard, they've been treated with respect, and that they understand why the decision is made. They may not agree with it, but if they understand it. And then for those cases that keep coming back and back again, and those are your custody cases, what they need from a judge is very specific orders. They also need a judge who will enforce those orders and hold people accountable for their behavior so they don't keep hurting their children.
All right, thank you very much for that answer. You mentioned something during the primary debates for this seat that caught my attention. You know, the National Institute of Mental Health suggests that 1 in 5 U.S. adults in a given year will struggle with some sort of mental health issue. You noted that Nevada is somewhat lacking when it comes to mental health services. What specific training do you have that would enable you to deal with someone who is struggling with mental health issues who appears before you in court?
Part of the training is in my undergrad work. I took a lot of psychology and sociology cases or classes, and it's also experience in dealing with people and I've had mediation training, arbitration training, and learning how to deal with people's issues and redirect them to what needs to be solved in their case. You can only encourage people. I mean, there's people who have schizophrenia, for example. If they don't take their medicines and don't have the right medicines, they're not going to be able to act rationally. And as a judge in family court, you're limited. You can refer them to and say, get an evaluation. I want to see an evaluation. I want you to take counseling. I want you to prove that you're compliant with your medications. But you can only lead them to that water. You can't make them drink the water. And sometimes you have to set orders for the children of those people with severe mental illness that protects those children from them.
Thank you. Judge Gonzalez, what specific training do you have dealing with litigants that may be experiencing mental health issues?
Well, I'll start off with juveniles. I represented 2,000 children in juvenile justice court. That's part of family court. That's one of the areas that I have a lot of experience in. I've represented children with mental health issues. I've gone through a lot of classes on child development, brain development, on issues and helping children. I've worked with psychologists and psychiatrists in assisting my juvenile clients to address these issues. Currently, I am a court-appointed counsel in abuse and neglect court. I'm in there every single day. I represent hundreds of clients that have mental health issues, many of them very severe mental health issues, developmental issues. I've represented clients there that have a 50 IQ. These are issues that I deal with in dealing with providers, treatment providers every single day. And if I'm back on the bench, which is my goal to serve in this community, that's where I want to be. That's where my heart is, down in abuse and neglect court. That's where I have the experience, where I can go into the courtroom and immediately make an impact with those individuals, in particular, those who have mental health issues.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry to interrupt, but we do have to take another break. We'll be right back with candidates, questions and answers in Family Court, Department U. Stay with us.
With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today.
Welcome back to RJ Debates 2020. We're talking with candidates for Family Court Department U. This next question goes first to Judge Gonzalez. Domestic violence is an issue that you frequently see in family court. I don't have to tell you that. How do you balance, or how did you balance, the rights of a person to have a child visitation, child custody, with the rights of someone to be safe from their alleged abuser, and for the children to be safe as well?
Well, Steve, the most important thing is to make sure that children are safe and they're protected. Under family court laws, if you have a domestic violence, if it's proven by clear and convincing evidence or by a conviction, then there is a presumption that you are not a fit parent to have primary or joint custody. Sometimes people use that as an advantage, and there may be a situation where somebody has made up an allegation. And in each case, you need to make sure that victims are protected, that people who are accused also have their day in court. And that's part of being a judge, taking the time, making sure you're on a calendar, that if you need an hour, if you need 2 hours to address that you're able to address that in a way that you look at all the evidence and you apply the law. That's very important. There's temporary protective orders down there that have to be issued by the court. And again, the most important thing is to protect children and to protect families.
If somebody... Thank you for that answer, Judge. Appreciate it. Ms. Throne, your answer to that question, how do you balance those rights?
Well, I have experience in that. I was a pro tem hearing master in domestic violence court, so I know what it takes to review those applications, to hear parties, and to do it. And you're balancing rights of generally three different people. The child has a right to have a relationship with both parents and to be safe. The victim of the domestic violence has a right to be safe, but the perpetrator or alleged in those cases in TPO court is a very low standard. The alleged perpetrator has a right to have a relationship with a child. So you have to set very specific orders and parameters, give them a rule book, what to do. Use the tools such as supervised exchanges, having people help them so they don't have to interact. And sometimes these are problems that are most critical right when the parties separate. So you want to set clear orders that this parent A gets this time, parent B gets that time. You want to enforce that order and do supervised exchanges and keep everybody safe.
All right, thank you very much for that answer. We're going to take our final break and be back with closing statements for candidates, Family Court, Department U. Stay with us.
The Vegas Nation podcast is your source for all your Las Vegas Raiders news. Subscribe and get fast takes and smart coverage. Download the Vegas Nation app, check out vegasnation.com, and stay up to date with your Las Vegas Raiders.
Welcome back to our RJ Debates 2020. We're talking with candidates for Family Court, Department U. We've come to the part of our debate where we talk to the candidates with their closing statements. They'll have 45 seconds each. We're going in reverse order from when we started, and that means, Ms. Throne, you go first.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for taking the time to learn about the judicial candidates. In family court, it's very important to get the right judge, and it's not just the knowledge of the law and procedures in there that's important. It is personal background, personal experience. And I want you to know more about me. I am a hard worker. I grew up very poor, and I was in a home where domestic violence was present. So I know what it's like to be the child. I know what it's like to be a party in family court. And I worked hard to put myself through college and law school. And I also know that parties come looking for a solution. I'm creative in helping the parties use tools to come to their own solution.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Judge Gonzalez, your closing statement.
Yes, so my opponent on her website indicates that judges should be skilled and not politicians. I was quite surprised about that. Dawn and I have gone head to head on numerous dozens of interviews with not political organizations, but important organizations in our community, and each and every one I have won those endorsements from members of our community. Mark Hutchinson, Lieutenant Governor, he's an attorney. He's appeared in my courtroom. He's dealt with Don. He's endorsed me. If you go to my website, you'll see many, many people who have endorsed me, organizations in the community, because they know who I am as a person. They trust me. They know my experience on the bench. And I would appreciate your vote for Bill Gonzalez in Department U.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. We appreciate it. And that's all the time we have for our debate this evening. My thanks to both candidates for participating. You can stay up to date on all the 2020 political news on our website, www.reviewjournal.com. Join us next time as our debate series continues. Till then, for the Las Vegas Review Journal, I'm Steve Sebelius.